Hi, Deval.
Hi, Danielle.
Hi, Deval. How you doing?
I'm doing okay, and yourself?
Good, good. For all righty. Okay, good, good. Oh, all right. I got a little time. Let me go.
Danielle, I'm going to go on a brief hold, okay?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Me too. See you in about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
more. Look at me waving. She is. She's a special mama. I know she don't do everybody else like this. She know what's in there.
Dad, do you mind go take a look, Chef?
She know they in there, and I don't know what she need to put.
Slip phones. I will go get some from one. They have like the Arctic.
Okay, I'm off now. Ready to talk.
Okay. Well, hello, hello, hello.
Hello, hello, hello.
Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Wellness Center's presentation on post-pandemic stress, perception versus reality. Thank you for taking the time today to be a part of this and learn about how the pandemic has been affecting you, primarily your mental health, as well as some things that you can do to try to grow, try to have some personal growth throughout this experience. So let's see, I will introduce myself. We'll also have the other staff members introduce themselves, and then we'll go ahead and get started. We've got a real treat for you in terms of some audience participation. So please get your phones ready for our game. If you haven't signed in yet, please sign in the chat so that we can recognize you and enter you into our raffle for some moolah. So be sure to do that. All right, so I am Dr. Danielle. I'm one of the counselors in the Wellness Center and been here since 2019 and look forward to working with students around a variety of issues, as well as serving them through our outreach programs. We also have on our program today, on our Zoom, I guess you call it a Zoom call, Mr. DeVell Kent, who's also one of our counselors. And following his introduction, we'll hear from our nurse Arnita. So Mr. Kent.
Oh, yes, yes. Well, welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone. My name is DeVell Kent, as my colleague said, one of the counselors at PGCC Counseling Services under the Wellness Center. I hope you all are ready for a really, really good treat today, looking at post-pandemic stress, some perceptions, versus what are some realities. And I'm just always excited to participate and fellowship with you and walk away with just some new exciting information that could help. Ironically, I've been at the Wellness Center since 2019 as well. So welcome again. Once again, thank you, Danielle.
Not a problem, not a problem. Okay, and now we have a real treat, Nurse Arnita. Nurse Arnita?
Oh, hi everyone. My name is Arnita Shelton, and I am the campus nurse here at Prince George's Community College. I'm the oldie because I have been here 40 years part-time. So that's a long time. And I even graduated from here, the nursing program. So that's a testimony that it can be done. I'm excited about this program and being with my colleagues. We always learn. I always learn something. I'm sure if I learn something, you're going to learn something. And we look forward to teaching you all something. So just relax and let the brains work. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Nurse Arnita. Okay, great. All right, well, let me navigate this technology here and get us off of this screen and take us to starting our game. So let's do that. Is it? It is right here. Okay. Here we go. Like I said, get those phones ready or a computer or a tablet, and let's go ahead and play. All right, first question. Actually, we're waiting for players, so go ahead and log in. Have your phone. Go to www.kahoot.it, and that will take you right to the screen. The game pin is on the screen as you see. It's 323270. And then go ahead and put in a nickname if you have one, or your name, whichever you prefer. Excellent. Excellent. Can we get one more player, perhaps? If not, we go with the two. That's fine too. I'll give it a minute. Let you all sign in. All right. Let's go ahead and all right, question one, true or false? Harvard research suggests feelings of social isolation is on the rise. Older adults prefer older teens and young adults. True or all right, the answer is true. The answer is true. Would anyone like to speak to that? No? Okay, well, I certainly can. Feelings of isolation are on the rise because of the pandemic, the social distancing that we have to adhere to, and the the shutdown in itself, in terms of when we could not go out to work, go out to eat, and in still some cases, we are limited in what we can do. And so it's contributed to people feeling like they're not able to connect with others, or feeling of great loneliness because they're not able to have meaningful relationships face to face in person, where we are able to have that human contact. And so as a result, social isolation is on the rise. Okay. All right, let's go to the next question. Oh, you know what? Before we do that, let's get a sense of how you all are feeling. Let's take a look at the causes of pandemic stress. There's a poll on the screen for you. What has been the most stressful part of the pandemic for you? And there are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different categories. Where would you rank those? Okay. Okay. All right, I'm getting ready to end it now. And it looks like that for the majority, it's the loss of loved ones from the virus. That's a very sobering fact. The numbers suggest that 700,000 lives have been lost during this pandemic.
Wow.
And you know, that number is so large, it makes sense that you might know someone who perhaps knows of or had a relative, or even have experienced the loss yourself. Our poll even speaks to that. So we need to be mindful of the way in which we care for each other, knowing that in some ways, some of us are still grieving.
Absolutely, absolutely. And you know, just to touch on that for a minute, and you know, loss is traumatic in itself. It's very complex in itself, and you know, not really easy to adjust to. But you take that, and then you take a pandemic and a cultural and national, even, well, let's just say it, a global change with that, that makes the coping with the loss of loved ones that much more impactful across the lifespan, because you have children, the elderly, individuals in their prime, quote unquote, you know. So there are no what's the word that I'm looking for? There are no favorites when it comes to, you know, this particular situation. So I truly could understand why the social isolation is just on a rise, just looking at the loss of individuals and the fear that comes behind that. So I just, you know, I was just compelled just to speak on that for a second, because, you know, like I said, just dealing with grief and having to process that and, you know, live with the loss of a loved one is not an easy feat by itself. But then when you take this global fear and threat, it just makes it that much more exacerbating.
Okay.
And I just want to say a little about that also. During the pandemic, I attended 3 funerals, and they were not the usual way that we do a funeral. Like in the funeral home, I actually looked at them on the screen. There was no grieving. You know how we go to funeral, no repast. So that's another thing. You know, the grief might be longer. The people that possibly died might have been in a hospital, and you will not be able to visit. So that's another way that just helped the process even stronger, that you didn't have time to grieve and,
Yes.
and express your grief.
Mhm. Mhm. Yes. Okay. There's some comments in the chat
Yeah.
from Laura, who said they couldn't even have a funeral.
Right.
And how much does that complicate your ability to say goodbye, or to have some closure? So yeah, the idea that the way in which the pandemic has affected the way in which we express our grief and the way in which we share and support each other through fellowship has really just knocked that out the water.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, we got some new folks join us, so we're doing a Kahoot game. So I encourage you to go down here where it says kahoot.it, www.kahoot.it, enter the game pin 323270, and you'll be right in with us. All right. We're only on the first question and we're going to the second. So you're not far behind. Thank you for joining us. All right, we'll go to the next question. These are common reactions to the pandemic. Common reactions. Okay. The answer is all of the above, surprisingly. So what does that mean? Well, it means that during this time, many people are experiencing feelings of sadness, feelings of hopelessness and helplessness.
Mhm.
We also touched on the loneliness piece and that social isolation. And then there's this element of just sleeping more, not really having a structured day and kind of just laying around and kind of being like a bump on the log, if you will. And that's a very common reaction to this feeling of when is this going to end? Because we don't know. There's so much we don't know, so much uncertainty that really plays on our sense of on our sense of normalcy and our sense of consistency. I see, Devel, you even put in the chat that it can contribute to a lack of motivation.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Just the same routine, get the same routine day in and day out, and then having to be even more restricted can, it has a impact that could really just make everything a blur and everything just so uh relaxed and mundane, whereas though you find yourself not being excited about the very things that you once was excited about, and you find yourself just kind of not really living but just being alive. And that as a student, that has negative impacts and implications on your studies. As an employee at a job, it could definitely have some negative impacts on your performance. But taking it a step further, just as a individual that is part of a cohort, it could really cause you, going back to that first question of looking at isolation, it could really cause you to withdraw, because now you're just unhappy with your own personal performance, your own day to day, and it could just cause you just to not be wanted to be bothered at all.
And to your point, Devel, other reactions or symptoms could be irritability, being very irritable. It could also be anger, and the idea of just being in limbo, not knowing what type of decisions can I make about the future without even knowing how the future is going to be.
Yeah.
A number of students have talked about that piece of it. How do I plan for something that was unplanned?
And before we go to the next question, I'm just curious, could we just have the participants just put one word in the chat that would describe how you have been coping in this pandemic?
One word in the chat. Okay.
Yes. See, wavering, managing, absolutely numb. Yeah, I feel you. I feel you. Absolutely. Isolated. Yes, yes, yes.
So any of those, thank you for that, Devel. Any of those could be the answers here for this question. This list is not, it's extensive, depending upon your reaction. All right, thank you for that. Nice pulse.
Mhm.
Let's take another question, the next question. All right, true or false? Okay. Wow, got a nice split here.
Yes.
So, if you don't mind, can we have folks talk from both sides? So for the ones who said true, and if you're feeling comfortable for the ones who said false as well.
Don't be shy.
Come on. We won't see your face. We'll just hear your voice.
Mhm.
Toya, I said false because we know that so many people have gotten the vaccination shots. However, they are still passing away from COVID if you have some extenuating circumstances or pre-existing health conditions. So I said false because I would want to say in our society that if we knew that was possibly a plausibility or issue, you would say, hey, hold on, this may still be an issue. So I didn't feel like we as a society or as a group know enough about different parts of the COVID, even the vaccination, that in this post-COVID world really works for us yet.
Yes, well said. Thank you. Well said. All right. Would anyone else? Oh, there's something in the chat there.
Yeah, I was going to say there's a few responses in the chat. It says even though so many people are vaccinated and many students are still getting COVID, masks aren't enough.
Very nice. Okay, so we've got some competing ideas, right? The vaccine certainly does make things safer.
Mhm.
It does certainly offer some level of protection. I've been seeing some commercials that liken the vaccine to wearing a helmet or putting on a seatbelt. Just the act itself won't save your life, but it makes it more likely that the injury you sustain won't be as life-threatening. And that's certainly the case with the vaccine. But there are a lot of things that you're right, we still do not know. We went from 10 feet to 6 feet to 3 feet, and still we're really not sure about that. So, and then we went from one shot to now a booster shot. So things are in flux.
Yeah.
And we really just have to pay attention to the changing guidelines.
Yeah, no, I agree. Ironically, there are good points on both sides of the scale here with this particular question. There are certain things that organically will make you much safer with it than not having it. And then there are complications and evidence-based results that prove that you still could be at risk
Mhm.
with. So no, it's one of those situations where, you got a little bit of both happening.
Right. Yeah, so oh my gosh, maybe this was a trick question. Everybody gets points for that one.
Thank you. Thank you for the clarification too, Dr. Danielle. Thank you.
Of course, of course. All righty. Next question. Ooh, true or false? Okay. Oh, everybody got that right.
Oh,
All right. Devel, would you like to speak to this?
absolutely.
Okay.
So basically, what we're finding is that individuals are participating in the consumption of alcohol a lot more, which in turn is boosting the sales of alcohol. Before COVID, there were about maybe 25% of American adults admitting to binge drinking, according to the National Survey on Drug Use and Health. In the first few weeks of the lockdown, alcohol sales jumped up 54% over the previous year. So that tells you a lot. And it goes back to what we were just talking about in regards to how we're coping, how we perceive dealing with the circumstances that we're in. And exactly, Laura, liquor stores now deliver. And here's the funny thing about that, because when you're an individual that just looks at data and you look at different trends and emerging themes that are coming out of our societal quote unquote norms, there are a few things that one has to acknowledge. The first is when we were in the lockdown very early, alcohol institutions was considered essential. And that was something that I was always curious about when I saw it. I was like, oh, okay, so certain grocery stores you can't go in, but I could go to the corner and get a bottle of wine. Oh, okay. Very interesting. The other thing that we noticed is now there's more of a diversity in how you receive alcohol. There are these deliveries, there are these mail order subscriptions. They've created new types of packaging. I want to say there are now in cans where you can get a mixed drink in a can, like it's a can of soda. So when you look at it, all of these marketing techniques, and that's exactly what they are, marketing techniques and strategies, it's making it more and more convenient to utilize alcohol. And the problem is we already are living with fear, social isolation. So this just creates new problems on top of whatever you've been dealing with thus far. And so again, very early on, the one thing that I noticed is that they considered liquor stores and wine depots as essential. And I was like, wow, that's interesting. People are fighting for toilet paper, but you could get a beer at your local store. So, these are, making light of a situation that's not light at all, but these are what the factors are that have increased these alcohol sales. It's the alcohol consumption.
Good point. Okay. Well said about all of it. Okay. Yes. And Talia said, awesome. Yeah, that was an awesome response. Thank you, Deval. All right. Next question. The pandemic has not negatively affected or impacted people. Oh, all right. Everybody got that one right too. Okay. Okay.
Mhm.
All righty. If you could you put in the chat, what do you think are some of those negative behaviors?
Great question. Great question.
Mhm.
What you consider a negative behavior? And I'll put it in the chat what it was for me. Uh-oh. Oh, I accidentally did that. I don't know how to get stop. All right, we'll just let it play. We put junk food, okay? Yes. Computer fatigue, okay. All righty. Yes, and I think junk food and eating all the time could be synonymous.
Mhm.
Because I'm sure I was eating all the time junk food. So yeah, those are some of those negative behaviors. Deval, did you want to say any more about that before we went to the next question?
Absolutely. I wanted to touch base on some results from Value Penguin survey that
Okay.
looked at the development of unhealthy habits. And so, according to Value Penguin, it says, 6 in 10 Americans developed unhealthy habits during the pandemic that they want to work on. And so this was taken from it's a rather small sample, but it still gives you a glimpse of what's happening. About 1,000 participants. And it says 61% of Americans are trying to break unhealthy habits developed during the corona pandemic. Namely, 30% cite more screen time, poor eating habits, and sleeping too much or too little. So let me just run that back. 30% say that they're just looking at the screen way too much, whether that's your computer, whether it's your phone, your tablet, your television. There are 22% of individuals that say that, they are in that category with me with, just poor eating habits. And then there's that 21% that say that they were just sleeping too much and or too little. And so with that, we just have to be mindful of what's convenient to us. Being home, being next to the refrigerator, seeing the snacks, you're restricted amongst individuals. Everybody has DoorDash and Food Hub, and so you can order a 4-course meal right at your home. And it's not to say that those things weren't there before, because they were, but it's just when you're in a space, you're restricted, and you see that commercial, and it's like you get that idea, and you're like, you know what? I think I'm going to eat out tonight. Oh, it's the next day. I think I'm going to have lunch in. Oh, I think I'm just going to have a couple of midday snacks and then I'm going to take a nap. It says someone ran, I think Laura has a comment. It says someone ran
Yes.
grocery store cart into me at the grocery store saying that I was too close to them. Wow. Another shopper attacked her. Wow. Everyone was yelling, stopped going there. I don't blame you. Instacart is a saving grace. My student
Yeah.
keeps they were missing class because they couldn't wake up or they were taking naps. Yeah, so true. So
Yeah.
true. During the height of the pandemic, I had a lot of students that would miss their sessions as well, let alone come on late. They would come in 15, 20 minutes late. And a lot of times the response was, I overslept, or I was taking a nap and, for whatever reason, the pandemic was causing them to not be as diligent as they normally would be. And, I've had a lot of people, and this is inside the PGCC community and outside the PGCC community, say that, they conducted business from the left or the right side of their bed, whether it was being a student online, whether it was working. And so, if you're laying in bed all day, that's going to create a mindset of convenience, or what I like to say, a microwave approach to life. And so it makes sense why, people are a lot more agitated, a lot more aggressive. You have these bad eating habits, you have these poor eating habits. And so the body's not being able to regulate on its highest normal level. So when you have these imbalances physiologically, the outcome is going to be seen physically and verbally. And so, yeah, it's just very interesting. And, a few healthy tips is to make sure that we prioritize our health. Don't put that on the back burner. Make sure that in the forefront of your mind, you make sure that your health is important and is primary. So even if that means, I'm not going to snack for 24 hours. I'm going to drink more water, so be it, because as we mentioned, the research said that 25% of adults are 61% of Americans are trying to break unhealthy habits that they've developed. And we've had a year plus to get used to these bad habits.
Yeah, yes. And to your point, you are not going to break them overnight. And part of it involves, I know I worked a lot with my students around developing a routine that you could live by and that was consistent.
Yes, consistency, absolutely.
Yeah. Okay, very good. Thank you. Thank you, Devel.
You're welcome.
So the next question, I'm sorry, I wanted to make sure you were done.
Nope, I'm done. Yeah.
Yeah, okay. The next question went through and has already been answered. So here's the answer right here. If you've been fully vaccinated, can you still test positive for COVID-19? Nurse Arnita, can you speak to that?
Yes. I see that we have 2 for yes and 1 for false. The answer that we're still working on and testing is that yes, you can still test positive for COVID if you have been vaccinated. But what we're finding out, if you have been vaccinated, there's a less chance that you could get COVID. So that's why we're really encouraging people to be vaccinated. It's still possible that you can get COVID, but it's less possible if you have been vaccinated. Now, my responsibility as the campus nurse during the COVID season has been for students to contact us and let us know if they had COVID or not. And we've had a lot of students that had COVID, but they got COVID. They didn't know. Some of them knew where they got it from, they think, but a lot of them were exposed by family members that were positive, and most of them were positive from work. So a lot of the students, let's say they got COVID from their mother, and their mother got COVID from somebody at work, and the person at work has not been vaccinated. So we're still saying, the literature still says, the doctors still say, the CDC still says that it's less possible for you to get COVID if you have been vaccinated. So that's why we still encourage you to get vaccinated.
And also, Nurse Arnita, along with that is a less chance of hospitalization, but more importantly,
yes, a less chance of hospitalization and even a less chance of death. We can even go that far.
Mhm.
You know, if you get the virus, let's say if you do get the virus, then you're less sick. Let's say if you have COVID, I've had people that have had patients that have had COVID that are really sick, and some of them all they have is like a cold. So most of them say, "Oh, I thought I had a cold, but it was COVID because it wasn't that bad." But then
Okay.
we've had people that have had COVID turn into pneumonia, ended up in the hospital on the vent, which is the machine that breathes for you. So the COVID, the vaccine, they're saying that it's less possible that you will get as sick. Possibly that you get sick, maybe like a cold, but not on the vent, dying, and on the respirator.
Okay. Very good. Thank you. Thank you, Nurse Arnita.
You're welcome.
All right, let's go to the next question. What is meant by the term post-pandemic growth? Okay, okay. Let's see. Well, it looks like just about everybody got that one. Cool, cool. I just knew somebody was going to go with the weight gain.
Mm,
Took me a while to think of that answer,
Yeah,
but
that was a
yeah.
tempting selection right there.
mhm,
I had to get creative. It refers to how the pandemic can lead to, for some, it has led to personal growth um, and meaning for some. So, what do I mean by that? Well, um, when we go through a traumatic experience, and many experts have determined that this pandemic has been a traumatic experience. Okay. When we go through that, um, some people develop symptoms that can mimic or mirror post traumatic stress. But there's also the other side of the coin, where going through a traumatic experience can help develop your personal sense of accomplishment and confidence and assertiveness. And that is looked at as personal growth and post pandemic growth. How do you do that? Um, how can you make it so that you're more likely to be able to have the post pandemic growth? Well, there's actually 5 different indicators that can help with that. One has to do with a deepening spiritual life. So it doesn't mean that you now go to church or you become a nun or a priest. No, but what it does mean is that you get in touch with the faith that sustains and supports you, whatever that faith might be. Okay, so a deeper sense of spirituality. Another that you can do is having the ability to see things in or to see new possibilities. An example of that is DeBelle and I, my colleague, the other counselor, we had to come up with a way of how do we now counsel students when we can't physically be there and see them. So we had to introduce telehealth. We hadn't done telehealth before at Prince George's Community College, but the pandemic opened up that opportunity for us to do that. And look at this. We are like, who's zooming who now, the third is having an appreciation of life, being grateful, having gratitude. And having gratitude has shown, there's some research that suggests those people who have a practice of gratitude daily, and what that means is maybe writing down 1 to 3 things that you're grateful for on a daily basis, you begin to raise your level of well-being and happiness because you're recognizing the benefits and the fruits within your life. So that's the third one, having an appreciation or a gratitude of life. The fourth one is cultivating meaningful relationships. Now, honestly, the pandemic really, really wreaked havoc on romantic relationships. You either got closer or you either got apart. Part of post-pandemic growth is cultivating those relationships so that they're there to support you, growing closer to a person who you love, who you support, who you care for. That in turn helps your well-being. And let's not forget just helping people, how helping others helps us. Okay. And the last one is having a sense of personal strength, this sense of, look at what I got through. You know, when you talk to people who are survivors of the Holocaust, people who are survivors of the Great Depression, people who are survivors of something like Hurricane Katrina, they have this sense of, yeah, I got through that. And they can tell you stories of how they got through, and resiliency. Those are the elements of having post-pandemic growth. So if you can incorporate any of that into what you're doing now, deepening your spirituality, looking at new possibilities, having an appreciation or gratitude, finding and cultivating meaningful relationships, and then lastly, drawing on that personal strength that you have to get through hard times, you too can experience some post-pandemic growth. Devel or Nurse Anita, would you like to say any final words around that? If not, we'll go on to the next question.
Yes, as far as just getting together with I think with our family especially, because we have to be, well, we were in the house, no choice, with the family, the dogs, I mean, the animals, the pets, everybody. So it was really a good time to just sit down and talk to each other, to learn more about each other, to find out what you liked, to find out people's habits that you didn't know they had, some things that you liked about them, didn't like, and after that, just sitting down talking to them about it. And that might have helped some changes come about and made that family dynamics better.
Mhm.
Even the dog got more, I mean, you know, they say now even about the pets. When you go back to work, your pet has to be, I don't know what the word would be, but he's barking at the door because everybody's gone. He's used to everybody being home. So everybody had to you know, learn each other. So it was the pandemic was bad, but it has some little good parts about it. And this was one of them.
Yeah, indeed. If you can find some meaning through bad experiences, it helps it to make sense, and it helps it to be less negatively impactful for you. Looks like there's a comment in the chat. So true. All right, thanks, Devel. Okay. All right, let's go to the next one. All right, question 8. Mental health issues are expected to improve. Wow, those answers came in quick. Okay, let's see what the score is. Okay, 2 and 2. Very nice. Very interesting. All righty. The answer is false. There are experts who are saying that the mental health of not just the community, not just the nation, but of the world is going to be affected by this pandemic, and not in a good way. They're saying that mental health issues are expected to rise, particularly in the areas of depression and anxiety and even post-traumatic stress. And particularly, let's see here. Oh, I got a couple of statistics here in terms of within certain communities, like communities of color, communities within the BIPOC communities, meaning Black, Indigenous, or persons of color within those communities. Mental health has greatly impacted those individuals because you're adding in different elements that the pandemic also let flare up. For example, racial discord, social justice issues. The Me Too movement was during that time as well. And so people have experienced different losses, people have experienced racial trauma, people have experienced different hate crimes. I'm thinking with the AAPI individuals. And so all of this fallout may serve to increase the level of mental health services, the outreach for mental health, as well as the need for more mental health workers. I see that there's a hand raised, so please unmute and come on, ask your question.
Hi.
Hi,
So I could add something.
please do.
So I thought like after the pandemic, it would be another whole nother transitioning. Like first we transition online, now we need to transition to real life and be like, okay, what now? And it's a whole nother process, which is like tiring. And people are gonna be like sluggish. Like, why should I do that? So that'll take a whole nother system.
Very nice. Oh, great comment. I am so glad you raised your hand. Great comment. Okay. All right. Looks like there's something in the chat. Devel, you want to respond to that? Okay, there it is.
Sorry, I was having some issues with my mute, but yeah, it's interesting because on one hand, a lot of people will have taken on some healthier practices like sanitizing more and wiping things down and even possibly doing a distance, but the period after culture shock is always complex. Having to transition from one phase to the next, to the next, to the next, and also looking at now that you are transitioning, there is a level of uncertainty in these different phases. And so just having, like as the young lady was saying, just having that exhaustion from now I got to transition to this. We've already did that. And then there's that. And it's like, when are things going to be just leveled? You know what I mean? So I truly understand. And so there definitely, and we're seeing it now. There is an increase of a multitude of different behavioral health services. There is a increase of a multitude of a lot of different life resources needed. People just having to be reacclimated to certain lifestyles and certain means of society. And so again, it's never an easy matriculation when you look at it. It never is. So the aftermath is exactly that. It's the aftermath.
Yes. Very good. Very good. Okay. I was going to put it in the chat, but I can just say it. If you haven't signed in the chat, please go ahead and put your name in the chat so that you can be eligible for the gift cards. Thank you. All right, let's go on to the next question. We're getting to the end here. Another true false. Okay, very nice. I just love when we have different answers. That's great. So this was not a question that was, this was a question that was difficult to really swallow, because the data tells us that overall suicides went down, but they did not go down in the communities for Black Americans, Latino Americans, and Asian Americans. Oh, and also Native Americans. So those communities of color actually saw an increase in suicidal behavior. The other sad piece of that is that not only did it increase among adults, but also the attempts increased among children, which is suggesting that our kids are really having a hard time dealing with this pandemic, as are their parents. It's been very hard, very stressful, very chaotic. And we know that kids thrive in structure. That's what they need. That's why school is so important. It provides structure for their day. So these are not great statistics. One that I have here talks about, one study talked about the suicide rate during the pandemic increased for white Americans by 8%. And for Black Americans, it increased by 15%. And that represents within the last 30 days. So it's almost double. So what you have to ask yourself is, are we reaching out to those people who are in pain? It's not just us as counselors. It's also you as family members and as faculty and as staff to notice when someone may be off kilter or so despondent that they're unable to engage. DeVell and I often get questions and phone calls from faculty and staff telling us about a student's behavior. You know, her head is down, she's not engaging, I'm worried about her. How should I approach her to let her know I care? And we walk them through different things that they can say that helps to engage a student who may be suffering from suicidal ideation. I saw a hand raised. Please come off of mute.
Hi again.
Hi.
So I wanted to add that as people are staying at home more and around families, that could also like increase tension, and especially if like the parents themselves, I think that would lead to higher divorce rates because they couldn't tolerate each other before COVID, and now they're actually stuck at home together for like the entire time. So that also affects the child. So, yeah.
Good point. Good point. And I used to work with families who were divorcing, well, the adults who were divorcing. And one of the things we would say is the most toxic thing to a child is marital tension, that fighting that goes on. That really affects the child.
Yeah, because that's like where you find your sense of peace and security. So when that is threatened, you're like, where exactly do I go?
Right, that's right. So yeah, so insightful, so insightful. And Laura, thank you. You put, it looks like you put a resource in the chat. Thank you. Very nice. There's some other things in the chat here of people acknowledging loss. Both Laura and Frederick talked about losing family members, and we're definitely sorry to hear that about your family member, and hope that your family can somehow begin to recover from that loss. Yeah, that's really sad.
And,
And yeah, go ahead.
I'm sorry, on the, since we're talking about suicide, I also would like to add also that sexual abuse and sexual assault is on the rise also.
Yes, Nurse
That's
Arnita.
another thing that, you know, we're in the house, just different reasons,
And domestic
frustrations in the
violence.
house. You know, you can't go to work,
Right.
too much togetherness. There are a lot of reasons, but that is also on the rise very much.
Yes.
So that's something else that we need to be mindful of. Sexual
Thank
assault
you.
and sexual abuse between the parents and children.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we actually had the Purple Light ceremony today,
Yes.
and that signifies the start of Domestic Violence Awareness Month.
Mhm.
And some of the things they were saying is, yes, how the pandemic has increased incidents of domestic violence because there's nowhere for people to go. The shelters have closed, the different types of resources weren't available. And so it really made for a difficult situation.
Mhm.
All right, let's go to our last question here. Okay. Whoa, answers coming in. Very good. All right. Okay, look at that. Every, or as some people say, everybody got that right.
Mhm.
Very good. Yeah, yeah. Would anyone like to speak to that? I certainly can, but I feel like I've been talking a little much. So would anyone like to speak to this idea of survivor's guilt? And I can certainly come in and give a couple of statistics to back that up.
I could say something.
Go right ahead.
So basically what I feel like is, especially for those who lost people, they would feel like, why didn't I join them? Like, why was I chosen to live on without them? And then also start feeling like, oh, why can't I join them? Join them? Like, why do I have to keep living on without them? And then you start feeling guilty, and then yeah.
Good point. Much better than I could have said it. Yes. Yes. Anyone else? It says talking, so is someone on mute? No? Okay. All right. I'll just say a few words about this. Survivor's guilt, yeah, is real, and it doesn't have to just do with surviving death. It could be, wow, your job wasn't cut, you weren't furloughed, or you had the ability to work from home, whereas I had to quit my job. With some people, losses may have included not only financial losses, but eviction, may have included job loss, may have included relationship loss. So a lot of things to where you're wondering, how was I able to come out of it with this? Or how was I able to do that? And you might have some guilt around that. Yeah, we're in the same ocean, but we're in different boats here. I'm in a sailboat, you're on a yacht. And that really determines how we weather the storm. Okay. Yes, yes. There's a comment here that says, I feel like all that is probably, I feel like that is probably why people might be growing intolerant of each other. And for example, why Laura was attacked in the grocery situation. You bet.
Yeah.
You bet.
Good,
Yeah.
good point.
'Cause guilt can be anger too.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, well, this concludes. I'm not really going to take a look at the scores, but we'll go ahead and do that. Here's the podium. All right, DK. Yay. Musiba. Museba, rather. We got some runners up with TC and somebody else. So thank you so much for playing the game. Thank you. All right. At this point, we're going to let me stop sharing. But we're going to stop sharing, and this will be the end of our program for today. I'm going to give my co-host an opportunity to have some final words before we end.
Okay, I learned some things also. It was very informative, and I hope you all learn, and you all just take care of yourself, wear your mask, stay to 6 feet apart, wash your hands. You know, don't listen to everybody that says everything to you. Like they're like, I don't believe in COVID. Then you just don't let them believe in COVID. You do what your heart tells you to do. That's
Excellent.
my tip.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Devel, final words?
That's my final say.
Absolutely.
Yes.
So, and thank you, Nurse Arnita. In
You're
the
welcome.
midst of what the storm that we are weathering, the ebbs and flows of it, make sure that you invest in your own physical and mental well-being. It is non-negotiable. Self-care is as just important as anything else that's on our top 5, top 3 list of necessities. Please allow yourself and afford yourself the opportunity and the space to do something just for you. Thank you all for participating. I had a ball. The game was amazing. The information was overwhelmingly educating, and I just appreciate you all for sharing a portion of your Friday with us. Thank you.
Yes, well said. All right. I will ask that when you end, if you could give us your feedback in the evaluation that will pop up, we greatly appreciate it. And then watch your emails for those gift card winners. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I think you've already lost everyone. You may want to email them that.
That's fine. It'll do it automatically.
Yeah, as soon as they log off, it
As soon as
comes
you
right.
log off, it pops up. I don't have anything to do.
So we'll get the evaluation when we log off?
Uh-huh.
Okay, great. I'll do it then. Thank you again.
Okay. Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you, Laura, for coming.
Yeah, have a good
Have
night.
fun. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Thank you, Frederick, for coming. Appreciate you spending your time with us. Okay, I am going to thank you.
All right, take care. Thank you.
You too. Thank you. Bye-bye. All right, people. It's time to go, Devel.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, have a wonderful weekend. It was another great program, a lot of good information. And I will see you next week.
Yes. Yes. How's your family doing with the
Everybody, okay.
dislocation?
Yeah, everybody's doing okay.
Okay, good.
Thank you
All
for
right. Okay then. You take care. Bye-bye.
Likewise.
Thanks.